Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, what the Wolves have done best when the Lakers have the ball so far in the series. We'll also talk about how Finch continues to coach circles around the Lakers' JJ Redick. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Hump Day, and happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves are back in action tonight in LA. Game 5 looking to close it out against the Lakers. Today on the show, I want to talk about in yesterday's show, we talked about when the Wolves have the ball, what they've done really well, what's worked really well for them in this series. I want to flip it a little bit. When the Lakers have the ball, what has gone well for Minnesota, and kind of compare that to what my prediction in the preview was leading into the series in terms of what to watch for. And we'll also talk about what that could mean for tonight for Game 5. And then we'll key in a bit on the coaching, because JJ Redick just continues to really he's having a tough couple of weeks. We'll just say that. We'll get into that here in a minute. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app, on Roku, and Amazon Fire TV. All right. Let's talk about leading into this series. And actually, this is going to dovetail nicely into the JJ Redick, Finch conversation, most definitely. Coming into this series, we talked about how when the Lakers have the ball, there's some things the Lakers are good at that the Wolves are also good at. And so, what's going to give in this situation, right? So, one of the examples would be the Lakers score a bunch in the mid-range. The Timberwolves give up a lot of mid-range shots. How is that going to look once we get to the playoffs? Well, guess what? The Lakers haven't really shot that much in the mid-range. Now, a point of differentiation there is post Luka trade, the mid-range shots came down because obviously that was more of Anthony Davis's game than Luka's game. But regardless, I think the Lakers are like dead last in the NBA right now in the playoffs in terms of mid-range frequency. They're not dead last. The Wolves are dead last. The Lakers are down there though. They're very far down the list when it comes to the frequency of attempting mid-range shots so far in the playoffs. And that works because that's the Wolves are happy to give those up. The Lakers are apparently reluctant to take them now, and that actually lines up pretty well with the Wolves strategy. When the Lakers shoot them, also they're very middle of the pack. They're like 43% on mid-range jumpers, so that hasn't been an issue. And the Wolves have done a good job there. In terms of the 3-point line, the Lakers post Luka trade, again, we talked about this before the series. The Lakers were third in the NBA post Luka trade in terms of their frequency of shooting 3-point shots, their 3-point rate as a team. Nearly 43% of their shot attempts as a team came from outside the arc post Luka trade. In this series, it's 45%. It's actually gone up, and they've attempted more threes than Minnesota. In fact, only 37% of Minnesota's shot attempts are coming from outside the arc so far this playoffs. The Lakers are 45%. But if you look at accuracy, and this herein, we could get into the coaching. Well, actually, it's more roster construction than coaching. We get into accuracy. The Lakers are only 37% from outside the arc. The Wolves are 38.5%. So overall for the series, the Lakers have launched. I have the total here. They've launched a lot more threes than Minnesota. I'll tell you that. Let's see. The Lakers have shot 157 threes. The Wolves have shot 139. So they've shot 18 more threes across 4 games than Minnesota, but they've only made 4 more. They just don't have the personnel to launch the way that they're launching. Like even Luka, who's obviously an incredible shooter, and he's phenomenal off the dribble. He's only he's a 38% 3-point shooter this year, 37.9%, which is good. But he's their best 3-point shooter this side of Rui Hachimura, who has pretty limited opportunity. Yeah, I would say relatively limited opportunity. The volume isn't there nearly as much for Hachimura as it obviously is for Luka. The Lakers shoot a lot of threes. They've got a lot of league averagey type 3-point shooters. but they don't have anybody. You know, Rui Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith are the only 40% three-point shooters. And of course, they're on the floor with this 5-out group, the small group, the group that JJ Redick played for 24 minutes the other night. And it's easy to point at the one game the Wolves didn't shoot the three well at all. That was the game they lost, but they also won one game where each team made just a small handful of threes. So that hasn't actually been a huge piece in this series. I was expecting more of a 3-point battle, and I was a little bit worried about, if the Wolves rely so much on their role players to hit these threes, but it's been a bigger issue for LA than it has for Minnesota. I was worried about Austin Reeves in the mid-range, and also a little bit getting to the rim. That hasn't been a problem. I was certainly worried about free throw rate in this series. That hasn't been as big of an issue as I was expecting it to be. The overall free throw attempts in this series, Minnesota Minnesota's attempted 89 free throws in this series. The Lakers have attempted 81. If you had told me the Wolves would have had more free throw attempts through 4 games of this series, I would have told you were crazy. Now, that's certainly going to change tonight in Los Angeles. As of this recording, the referee assignments have not been announced. Lots of jokes out there about the extender, Scott Foster, who's a legend for his ability to extend series. He did not officiate on Tuesday night across the NBA with 4 games across the NBA. So don't be shocked if he's reffing the game tonight. There just may happen to be a lot of free throw attempts in this game, but to date through 4 games, Minnesota has attempted 8 more free throws. And the interesting thing is that it's spread out. They have 2 guys that have attempted 20 or more free throws, and that's Ant and Julius Randle. The Lakers have 2 guys that have attempted 30 or more free throws, and nobody else that's attempted more than 7 free throws. Austin Reeves has 7 free throw attempts across 4 games. Minnesota has 3 guys that have attempted more than 7 that are not named Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle. Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert would be those 3. And Nikhil's actually had 6 free throw attempts. And it's not because the officiating's been lopsided. Have there been bad calls? Yeah, there have been both ways. It's because the Wolves have actually gotten downhill and attacked the basket. And that gets us into the points of the paint conversation, which I covered quite a bit on Tuesday's show. Minnesota has absolutely dominated the points of the paint so far this series. They're a plus 67 through 4 games. And again, we spent a lot of time on that Tuesday. But that also is related to how the Wolves have defended on the Lakers end of the floor. And is actually a pretty good transition into what I wanted to hit regarding, I guess, roster construction and JJ Redick. I guess it doesn't really matter what order we do it in. But schematically speaking, I mentioned this in passing a couple of times, and I think Jack and I covered it last week when we talked. But the Lakers just don't have, and by the way, if you missed it, I'm using the word schematically a lot this series because JJ Redick used it like 14 times leading into the series it was after game 1 when he said that schematically, they didn't get beat. JJ's really tried to make it a point that he's not being outcoached. His team is just not good enough. His best players aren't good enough. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. But by the way, the kicker on this, I can't let this go. I have to get here. The Lakers played all 5 of their guys the entire second half in game 4, 24 minutes, right? The only time that's happened in the play-by-play era, 35 plus years where we have this data, it's never been done before because it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And I don't need to tell you why it's crazy because everybody knows why it's crazy. It doesn't need to be explained. And then for him to double down a couple days later, I think this was Tuesday's media, he said, he had a quote that was, I've got it here. He said, he was asked to film, this is from Dave McMenamin on Twitter, on X, the ESPN reporter. JJ Redick on a film review from the 4th quarter of game 4 showed any fatigue. JJ says, quote, no. And you know what? What did we score? 19, 20, and 13 in the 4th quarter of losses this series. It's a trend more so than that. Our 2 best players missed layups at the rim. Well, JJ, you're right. But guess what? The Wolves are shooting like 50% at the rim this playoffs. The Wolves are actually the worst team shooting at the rim in the playoffs of any team in the playoffs right now. It's mostly because Rudy's had a terrible offensive series. But that was an issue. But did you go back and watch all of the clips of guys standing with their hands on their knees in the 4th quarter? Because that was also an issue. That was retweeted by our guy Jack Borman from Steph No on Twitter. Posted just a gif of the last 4 minutes of the game of Lakers guys just grabbing at their shorts, just bent over because they're exhausted. You can't tell me that didn't have an effect. But the fact that he would double down on, no, I didn't mess that up, is just insane. Like, clearly there's not and I'm not saying Chris Finch hasn't done that, but Chris Finch has also admitted mistakes, and people get on Chris Finch for admitting if he makes a mistake. Sometimes Chris Finch will literally say things like, yeah, I should have I should have left Jaden out there longer, or I should have gotten Nas back out on the floor, or like he will say that, and he'll call out his star players for making mistakes because Chris Finch has apparently the security to be able to admit a mistake like that in the media, but also still hold his star players accountable. JJ Redick hasn't figured that out yet. And obviously, coaching in LA and coaching in Minnesota are different things. I get that. But he's a rookie head coach, and it's showing in this series. His lack of accountability in the media, his lack of an ability to admit that he made a mistake after game one. No, schematically. It wasn't schematics. After everybody, plays 24 minutes in the second half of game four. And now they weren't tired. They just missed layups. What about the second to last offensive possession for the Lakers where nobody moved at all and it ended with the LeBron 30-footer, 7 seconds on the shot clock? Was that, how much of that is coaching? Like, I don't know, get a play call in. Or I mean, you could blame your players for that too, I guess. But like, where does and this is, of course, the age-old question, where does the coach blame start and stop? But to refuse to be held accountable in the media or refuse to hold yourself accountable, because really, I think that's the coach should be able to do that to himself or herself. I think that's an important thing as a head coach of a basketball team is to be able to hold yourself accountable, to be secure in that, whatever that analysis is. And JJ Redick is not there right now because his leaving those guys out there the way he did and refusing to admit that was a mistake is pretty laughable. I want to talk a little more coaching, and then we'll kind of put a bow on the other end of the floor. We'll talk about what to expect in Game 5. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our new friends at CarGurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting. But between the confusing prices and hidden fees, it can feel overwhelming. That's why I love using CarGurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. With over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data that you need to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. If you need to just find a deal you can trust, which is the name of the game when you're shopping for a car, CarGurus makes it easy to compare vehicles. You can do it side by side with unbiased deal ratings. The best feature, though, is the price drop alerts. You'll know exactly when the perfect car is available for your budget. If you set that alert, you'll know when the price drops, and the in-depth vehicle details will give you peace of mind before stepping onto any lot. It's no wonder that SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus, CarGurus.com, CarGurus.com. Today's episode is also brought to us by our friends at WayFair. Spring is here, and that means that it is home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, WayFair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement. From small updates like stylish cabinet hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting, WayFair has quality products for every budget. We just recently upgraded our living room. We got a new rug. We got a new lamp. We're looking at coffee tables still. We have been for a while. It's also patio season, so deck chairs are next on the list. And Wayfair's selection is incredible if you're looking for any of the above or anything else for your home. Their fast and free shipping makes it so easy. That means there's no hauling heavy items from the store, and they have top brands as well, no matter what you're looking for. Shopping is seamless at Wayfair, and I've always found exactly what I need to fit my space and our style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started now at wayfair.com. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right. I don't think I'm quite done with JJ. I just think it's I just can't get enough of like how we could talk like actually I could get back to the schematics. We can talk about that. The Lakers, I know Jackson Hayes has been awful in this series, but I actually think instead of going small, especially when they were as fatigued as they were, like we could also add in the fact that it was the same 4 guys, the same small ball lineup for the entire second half, and it wasn't like let's give Gabe Vincent some run here, right? Like, or let's at least let Vando come and bust some skulls when we're down 10 to start the fourth quarter. That was a really, I guess, violent way of describing what Vando does. But like if you're the Lakers and you're up 10, you make some sub, right? You steal a couple minutes, maybe the league goes down to 7. But guess what? You're really tired superstars and role players. Like, I know that those are your best 5 players. I get it. But against this Minnesota team, like when Minnesota puts Rudy out there, especially with how Gobert struggled offensively to this point in the playoffs, if I'm the Lakers, I actually play Jackson Hayes more, not less. And I know the first 4 minutes of this game were miserable. He was awful. He got a technical, and he's not as good as Rudy Gobert. But offensive rebounding has been a massive problem for the Lakers. And by that, I mean the Wolves' offensive rebounding. We talked about this on yesterday's show. Minnesota has a massive advantage in non-garbage time minutes. Garbage time of game 1, the Lakers got like 5-6 offensive rebounds. But if you take that out, the Wolves are like plus 10 or 11 or something like that on the offensive glass in the series. And that adds up. And another thing I talked about on, I think, yesterday's show is that like the best way to look at that is at cleaning the glass. They talk about points per miss or points, which is it tracks the points scored on the possession after a miss. So it's not necessarily a putback score. It could be later in the possession. It could be free throws after somebody's fouled following a Rudy offensive rebound. And how many times does Rudy get an offensive rebound and then he's fouled and it resets the possession? And that doesn't necessarily that doesn't show up in the box score in the same way. Those are areas that the Wolves are killing the Lakers. And the only reasonable response for LA would be, let's give our biggest guy some more run. And then the other piece of that is the Lucas thing. Like, Luka's been good in this series. He hasn't been great. Ant has unquestionably been the better player. And honestly, I think LeBron's been better than Luka throughout the course of the series. And I recognize that maybe saying this, I don't know, maybe I'm asking for Luka to do this. Like, what's going to happen tonight? I don't know. I mean, Luka could go off. Certainly that could happen. He's an outstanding player. But the way he played in Dallas, he always had athletic bigs that were lob threats. He always had a dive threat. He always had somebody that had paint gravity that could put pressure on the rim. However you want to say it. Jackson Hayes isn't some of the guys he had in Dallas, but he's the only guy on this roster that can do that. And at least give them a semblance of a lob threat. And we saw it early in the series when Jackson Hayes was playing slightly more at the beginning of the first and third quarters and then would never see the floor again, which is, like I've joked in the past about, I thought maybe Mike Conley would be kind of a ceremonial starter for stretches in the series. And it's turned out to be Jackson Hayes. I joke about the Irvin Johnson 2003-2004 Timberwolves conference finals team, and Irvin Johnson would start at center. Of course, not Magic, but the Irvin Johnson that played for the Bucks forever, and he started for the Wolves that year and then wouldn't see the floor again after his first stint at the start of the game in the second half. That's just how Flip Saunders did it. That's apparently what JJ Redick was doing with Jackson Hayes until he just decided to never play him in the second half of Game 5. So, if I'm JJ Redick, I give that a shot. Like, stick with a little more Jackson Hayes. Now, of course, if you get down double digits, then you have to go small. You have to generate some more offense. You can play the 5 out to try and get more 3-point opportunities, which the funny thing is, like, to start the fourth quarter of Game 4, the Lakers did have a 10-point lead, and they could have tried going back to Jackson Hayes, at least when Rudy was on the floor. Now, Rudy at the end of the third quarter had that flagrant against LeBron James and came back off the floor at the start of the fourth, but they put him back in, like, I don't know, around the 10 or 11, 9 or 10 minute mark. Put Jackson Hayes back in, try and match big for big there, and use Jackson Hayes to set screens for Luka Doncic. And I bet you're going to have better luck there than Luka going ISO against Jaden McDaniels. And I know he was hunting the switch on Naz Reid, but guess what? The switches that Luka's hunted on Naz, the switches that Luka's hunted on Rudy, those have not gone well for Luka Doncic. They just haven't. Naz has been awesome. Rudy's been very good when they've been in isolation against Luka Doncic, and the 5-out stuff is not working for the Lakers. So schematically, my advice to JJ Redick would be, and I know he's handcuffed personnel-wise, but give it a shot with Jackson Hayes if you're the Lakers. Try having somebody dive to the rim and create that gravity, create that pull that's going to give Luka just a little bit more space. Even if you only throw the lob once, then it's in their minds. Right. And we haven't seen the Conley Gobert lob. We have very few Rudy lobs in this series. And it's because of the way the Lakers are defending the paint. We've talked about this before. The way they pack the paint makes it really hard to get that lob to Rudy. And coming into the series, I think we all thought that was going to be a possibility that Rudy could have a big series because of the Lakers' lack of size. But instead, because of the way the Lakers have chosen to approach that side of the floor, the paint is the paint is, there's just not space for Rudy to catch lobs and finish. But that's something, if I'm the Lakers, I would certainly look at doing. I would certainly look at you know, giving Jackson Hayes a bit more run to at least try and mix things up on the offensive end of the floor if you're LA, because it just, nothing else has worked for them. So again, the personnel, like, we could talk roster building, and maybe that's a bit of a postmortem. I'm not going to do that whole thing for the Lakers, but this, like, I can acknowledge that JJ Redick doesn't have the guys at his disposal that I'm sure he'd love to have to execute the way he wants to execute. But he does have Jackson Hayes, and he does have other guys who have played fine in this series. Like, I mean, Gabe Vincent's had some good moments. I don't know. Like, I don't think he just shouldn't see the floor. Jared Vanderbilt, especially, and this is actually, this kind of goes into what I want to cover for Game 5. One of the theories or strategies for the Lakers could be like, let's stick Jared Vanderbilt out there, see what happens, right? That could be a desperation move. And I don't mean to say that, like, I don't mean to denigrate Vando, because he's a good player, but clearly they don't want to play him. So, like, maybe that's the break glass in case of emergency situation on Wednesday. Let's get into that. Let's talk about Game 5. We'll do all of that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets. Even when demand is sky high, prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals could save you up to 60%. The last-minute deals are the biggest thing, and honestly, like, maybe that's what you're looking at for Friday. Hopefully, we don't have to go to a Game 6 here with Wolves-Lakers. The Wolves can close it out tonight, Game 5 in LA. If you're in LA, definitely check it out for tonight, but if you're in Minnesota, maybe you just want to wait. I would say wait and see if the Wolves can't pull this out on Wednesday night. I know they're underdogs, but if the Wolves win Wednesday, you don't have to worry about it. If they do win, though, you're going to be having to look at last-minute tickets for Friday night, and they're all in pricing at Game Time. Will mean that no surprise fees will get you at checkout. What you see is what you pay at Game Time, and it's the best place to look for last-minute ticket deals. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. So what to expect in Game 5? I think that if I'm the Lakers, I already talked a little bit about this adjustment I would make with Jackson Hayes. I would just give him a little bit of a longer leash in this series. Rudy is not doing damage against a small lineup anyway. And if Jackson Hayes is on the floor, you're making Rudy be on the floor more. And like the on-off stuff with Rudy's, actually, it's not been horrible, but he just hasn't contributed much on offense, even though he's been effective defensively. And giving that vertical threat, at least, call it vertical spacing. I don't know that I would say that Jackson Hayes has massive gravity as a player. Like, he doesn't have as much gravity, even as Rudy Gobert as a roller, because Rudy's just more of a presence. He's bigger. He just is a better lob threat than Jackson Hayes, weirdly enough, at this stage. But I think that the threat of Jackson Hayes would be huge for the Lakers. I also think we could expect Jared Vanderbilt to maybe get a little bit more run and kind of muck things up. Now, both of those ideas go out the window if the Lakers find themselves down. Like I said a minute ago, it's crazy because they were up 10 and they didn't try these tactics to buy themselves some minutes in Game 4 on Sunday. But if they find themselves up, they have the ability to steal some minutes with guys that can muck the game up like Jared Vanderbilt and give you another element like a Jackson Hayes. If they find themselves down, we'll be right back to playing the same 5 guys the entirety of the game. That's, I think, where JJ Redick's going to be on Wednesday night, because if he's so convinced he has to play the only 5 guys that deserve to play in a playoff game in a Game 4, what happens in a literal elimination game, a Game 5? Like, are these guys going to play 48 minutes? I don't know. I mean, like, where do you go from here? That's like a Game 7 desperation, Game 7 of the finals. Like, this is our season sort of a move. And even then, like, is it the right? Well, anyway, I don't want to go too far down that path, but I think we could expect the Lakers to try a little bit more of that. I think they'll be more aggressive in blitzing Ant. We've seen them start the series by trying to avoid blitzing Ant and putting 2 on the ball. Then they did the pseudo zone thing which got Ant in game 2. We figured it out in game 3. And then in game 4, we saw them be even more aggressive with putting 2 on the ball, especially down the stretch. And Anthony Edwards burned them to the tune of 43 points and 6 assists and only 1 turnover. Like, Ant made all the right decisions. I think we see them start with an aggressive blitz to try and force and then also be more aggressive on the backside, right? Whoever is 1 pass away. And this goes back to, I don't even put this as much on JJ Redick as I do on the players. I think on the backside of the traps against Ant, or the double teams against Ant, the Lakers were not aggressive enough. They were not quick enough. They were not active enough. And that harkens back to game 1 when the Lakers, period, were not aggressive enough. They just didn't play hard in game 1. In game 5, it was the same thing. But they tried to be more aggressive with trapping Ant. It's just on the backside, the guys who weren't involved in the trap, who weren't involved in the double on Ant, were not filling the passing lanes, were not disrupting Ant's 1 pass away. If they're more aggressive there and Ant makes a great skip pass, then more power to Ant. If he splits the double, maybe your low help is a little late or whatever. I guess that you shake Ant's hand. And that's what we've seen on some level. Like, this has been a combination of it's been more Anthony Edwards being incredible than anything else. But I'm trying to look out for what could the Lakers adjustments be. And that's where Ant has to be aware. Like, are they going to switch up what the second layer looks like behind the double team? What does the 1 pass away look like? Is that going to be more aggressive? Ant has to look out for, jumping passing lanes, potentially more Jared Vanderbilt mucking the game up, and also being active in passing lanes. That's what he does. He's physical and he jumps passing lanes. He is a little bit of a weak side rim protector. Like, some of that stuff that Jared Vanderbilt can contribute are things that Anthony Edwards has to look out for, has to be aware that the Lakers could do. I have full confidence he'll figure it out. Game 2 was a weird one. Every other game, whatever the Lakers have done, Ant has been able to process it in real time and figure it out and solve it. And we spent a lot of time the last 2 days praising Anthony Edwards and just how incredible he's been this series. In fact, I guess I spent most of the day talking about Ant on Tuesday's show. So if you missed that, if you want more Ant praise, that was yesterday, along with what the Wolves have done super well. And then the other thing I'd look for is, on the Wolves side, more of the same from a transition standpoint. Again, something we talked a lot about on Tuesday's show, but the Wolves so far in this series, in the 3 games that they've won, the Wolves have outscored the Lakers in transition 63 to 26 in transition in the games that they've won. Oh, excuse me, 63 to 23 in transition. And the one game they lost, the Lakers won the transition points 13-6. And as I said yesterday, it's not simply fast break points you see in the box score. That's what that number is I just gave you. But the secondary break opportunities, the pseudo transition opportunities, the possessions that take place with a somewhat broken floor because the defense is mismatched. They're in rotation already because you push the pace. The Lakers, especially now, exhausted after playing 1 billion minutes consecutively on Sunday, these guys don't want to run like the Wolves should want to run on Wednesday. And if I'm the Wolves, I run in I take every possible opportunity to run on Wednesday night. So I'm really looking forward to how this plays out. I think I know the prevailing wisdom is the Lakers win this game and the officials get involved, or however you want to frame it. That's kind of where people are at. Like, the Lakers right now are 5.5 point favorites on FanDuel. Feels high to me. I feel like 3.5 feels more about right. Honestly, I like the Wolves in this game. I know I picked the Lakers for the series, and obviously at this point, like, Lakers in 6 can't happen. I was wrong about that. And I thought Luka would be much better in the series than he has been. And that really, for me, has been the biggest thing. But I think the Wolves win this game. I kind of think I would take Wolves. I would maybe even take, but I guess I would take Wolves plus 5.5. I don't know how they take the money line. I think it's a close game. But I think Minnesota wins this game. I just feel like they learned a lesson last year in the conference finals. And I think they learned a lesson in the regular season with taking teams lightly. And obviously you can't take a team lightly in the playoffs, but I would put thinking the easy mental, issue here for the Wolves would be, we lose, we get to close it out at home in front of our fans in game 6. And even if we blow that, we get one more shot, right? Like, it's easy to get there mentally if you're the Wolves and you want to be lackadaisical about it. I don't think that'll be the mindset. I actually think they've learned from what happened in the regular season, from what happened last year in the conference finals, and it feels like this team is in a really good place. So I kind of would take the Wolves plus 5.5 in this game. So postcast tonight will be live at Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. Our guys, Luke and Jack, will have that. That audio will be the next show in this feed here at Locked On Wolves. I'll be back on Thursday with the postgame pod. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can watch on YouTube. You can watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and on Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder for your second listen, go check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until the NBA champion is crowned this season. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.